Welcome to Engage ICT. Another wonderful discussion is about to begin here tonight. I'm Sarah Jane Crespo. I'm so excited to see this wonderful response, this great crowd that we have tonight. So let's get going here. Our first panelist is Glendell Henderson. Wichita native, Glendell has been a part of Church on the Street for the last 6 years. Prior to that, he served on the Wichita Police Force for 19 years. Church on the Street, which is now 11 years old, takes place in a parking lot between St. Francis and Santa Fe on Sundays from 11:30 to 1:30. They feed the homeless every Sunday from that location, going typically from about 150 people at the beginning of the month to almost as many as 300 people toward the end of the month as people's budgets become tighter. So, as development coordinator, Glendell helps secure funding for Church on the Street. But when asked for his bio, he wishes simply to be described as a servant of the Most High God. Wow. Welcome, Glendell.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. I don't know if there was a mistake. I don't know if it was planned, but giving a preacher a microphone and to open a meeting, the only thing I'm looking for is the collection plate. So, but no, like she says, we at Church on the Street, we realize that everybody that we serve is not homeless. We realize that a lot of people have more month than money. And that is the purpose of us going down there and feeding them. They cannot make their money stretched until the end of the month, or some people are just homeless and just down on their luck. And we're there to make a difference. And by being there, we're there rain, sleet, or snow. So if it's raining, we put our rain suits on. If it's snowing, we put our snow boots on. If it's sunny, we put our shorts on. We are there every Sunday of the year. So people ask me, how did I get tied in with Church on the Street? Pastor Robert Weifinkel is the pastor. Him and I used to work for a company, and he just invited me down one day. And I looked at him, I told him, I said, sir, you know, no disrespect, but I've been in law enforcement for 19 years. I really don't want to deal with the homeless, until I actually went down there and not dealt with them from a law enforcement perspective, but from a need perspective. My heart went out. I have not missed a Sunday since then. And we do what we do. And as far as the development coordinator, it's a fancy term for a professional beggar. That's all I do is go out, solicit funding. When I got involved in the Church on the Street, we were taking money out of our own pocket each week to feed the homeless. Now we're sitting probably $10,000 to $12,000 budget. But when you're spending $500 to $600 a week, that goes fairly quickly. So anything that anybody wants to do for us, it's Church on the Street. You can make your donations there. She said I had 10 minutes, but this is all I have. I'm a simple man with a simple mission.
And Glendell, I just want to ask a follow-up question. I read recently that Church on the Street might be getting a permanent location soon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We just recently going in a partnership with the downtown church at Central and Market. It will take us out of the elements. It will put us in a climate control. Fat boy like me like climate control, because when I get hot, everybody know it. When I get cold, everybody know it, because I don't mind telling you. I like air conditioning. I like heat. So Pastor Joe Wright, they just done an article in, I think it was last Sunday's paper, where he went in and secured the building for us, but is going to open up the kitchen and the what we call a multi-purpose room, where we can feed them. Anytime that any of you guys want to come down, take a walkthrough of the facility, call me and let me know. I don't have a problem giving you my phone number, because if I don't want to talk, I don't answer the phone. But my phone number is area code 316 I'll pause because I see some pens moving. 650-5583. And my name is Glendell, it's all one word. I've answered the worst. My nickname is Bo. You can call me whatever you want to call me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Glendell. Next up is Becky Tuttle. Becky has over 20 years' experience engaging community partners through grassroots coalition efforts focusing on tobacco, physical activity, healthy eating, oral health, fetal infant mortality, and worksite wellness. Her focus has been on policy and environmental changes to improve the health of the community. In 2015, Tuttle became the project manager for HealthICT at the Medical Society of Sedgwick County, as well as facilitating the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita. Prior to that, Becky served as a director of wellness initiatives for the Greater Wichita YMCA and at Sedgwick County Health Department. Becky currently serves in many groups, including the Kansas Public Health Association Board of Directors. She's a Kansas Public Health Leadership Institute scholar and the recipient of the 2012 Kansas Public Health Association Virginia Lockhart Health Education Award. Also a 2016 Wichita Business Journal Women in Business honoree. Becky has a Master's of Art from Appalachian State University in Student Development Administration and a Bachelor's of Science from the University of South Dakota in Psychology and Alcohol and Drug Abuse Studies. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you. So glad to be here, and I'm always horrified when they say I have over 20 years of experience. I started when I was 12, so we'll get that straight. Sarah graciously asked me to speak to you a little bit about the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita, and then also some of our studies that we've done, including our food desert study and the hurdles to healthy food access. So just to give a brief overview, how many folks have heard of the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita? Yay, all right, I can leave. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so glad that so many of you have heard about it. We really focus on healthy eating and physical activity. We know that in our community, 2/3 of the folks that live in Sedgwick County are overweight or obese. Most of them do not consume enough fruits and vegetables, and most of them aren't physically active. So and our mission is to promote physical activity and good nutrition for every generation living in the greater Wichita area through people, programs, and policies. So we really emphasize people and networking opportunities, programs, and then we focus on policies and systems and environmental changes. So in the fall of 2003, the Kansas Health Foundation graciously awarded some funding to some folks, and I was one of the folks sitting around at the table who wanted to work on physical activity and healthy eating in a coordinated effort. We had tobacco groups working, we had lots of different folks coming together, but we didn't have a coordinated effort, especially around healthy eating and physical activity. So we formed the Health and Wellness Coalition. So we're now in our 12th year anniversary. We met the first time in January of 2014, and there were 16 of us sitting around a table representing 12 different organizations. And we have met consistently for the last 12 years and really have served as a model for the state, but then also some nationwide work that we've been acclaimed for. One of the successes of the Health and Wellness Coalition is our leadership team. We do have one of our leadership team members here, Jeff Usher with the Kansas Health Foundation, but our leadership team provides our structure and our guidance and our strategic planning and really helps us establish our priority policies around healthy eating and physical activity. So just to give you a real general overview of our action items, we work really closely with Bike Month. We help plan Bike Month with other organizations. We also have a committee for physical activity. We have a healthy school committee. We have the Working Well Conference. That's our 12th annual conference that boasts 300 participants every year. We also have a Working Well think tank and a Working Well award. Lots of things, but especially for this evening, we also have a healthy eating committee. Our Healthy Eating Committee focuses on promoting through programs awareness of the importance of healthy eating within Sedgwick County and within Wichita. We do some things to promote awareness through celebration of different health holidays. Does anybody know what health holiday August is? What month is August? Kids Eat Right Month. Right? And so during Kids Eat Right Month, if you're on our distribution list, you're getting emails, and we're doing Try Day Friday, where every Friday during August, we're focusing on a healthy fruit or vegetable and encouraging people to give it a try in a fun and unique way. We've also celebrated Food Day, and in the past we've done pantry raids, we've done Flip Your Fridge, we do different social media campaigns just to make it fun and interesting to raise the awareness of the importance of healthy eating and access to healthy foods. And we also celebrate National Nutrition Month, and we're getting ready to do some great things, and I think Tammy's going to elaborate on that a little bit more. So really within the Health and Wellness Coalition Healthy Eating Committee, it's a group of people who are just dedicated and passionate about healthy eating and food. And we have some folks who are dietitians, and we have lots of folks like me who aren't, but we just want to increase access to healthy foods within our area. So just to give you a few more highlights about the Health and Wellness Coalition, if you're interested in learning more and joining our membership and even just getting on our newsletter distribution list, our website is hwcwichita.org. That's hwcwichita.org. We have over 150 members. We have 95 different organizations. We provide networking opportunities, monthly meetings, and we have a newsletter that boasts over 8,000 people on our distribution list. So our reach is significant. When we send something out, lots of people receive our messaging, and we're really proud of that we're able to extend our message. And so I just wanted to give you a few highlights too about some of the other work that we've done and people have talked about is we've done the food desert study. So back in 2013, we worked with the WSU doctoral psychology program, and we commissioned a study where we went across the community and we wanted to identify where food deserts were. And a food desert is traditionally defined as a low-income area where a significant number of residents have access to supermarkets or grocery stores, usually within a mile radius from where they live. So from that study in 2013, now keep in mind since then, we've had grocery store closings, we've had quick trip closings and other things, but at the time, we learned that approximately 25% of our population lived in a food desert, and we actually have 44 square miles of food deserts. The other thing that was significant for us was not only that we had food deserts, but there is a extreme price variance in healthy foods depending on where you live. For example, we looked at items such as a bag of oranges or a gallon of milk or a can of tuna and water. And we found that if you are in an area that is lower socioeconomic status, you are more than likely going to pay more for those items. And so people who already have limited means now are being additionally burdened with not being able to afford some of the healthy foods that we want them to consume. So if you want to see the study, again, you can go to hwcwichita.org. We still have it on the website. From then, our leadership team was really insightful, and they said, we know that we have food deserts. This is a problem, but we want to know more. We want to know if people eat healthy in food deserts, how and why do they do that? And if they don't, how and why? And so again, we looked to our friends at the Wichita State University in the doctoral program, and we decided that one of the best ways to find out was to just go and ask people. And so we went into 3 of the zip codes that were entire food deserts, and we decided that we would meet with 75 people in each of those 3 zip codes, and we did key informant interviews, and we asked them the same questions so that we could guarantee we had accuracy and consistency. And we talked to them and said, if you eat healthy, how do you do it? And if you don't, why not? We were looking for themes and we were looking for burdens so that we could help to identify those. And we determined that there were really 6 factors. And some of these won't be surprising to you. For the people that identified why they don't eat healthy, cost was the number 1 reason. And we heard many, many stories about not being able to afford fresh fruits and vegetables, and just being able to not only afford fruits and vegetables, but possibly not afford the transportation to be able to get there. Maybe they only have enough gas to be able to get to work, so they don't have enough gas to also get to a grocery store to buy healthy food, so they're stocking up on foods that aren't as healthy, that have a longer shelf life. We also were surprised that quality was an important issue. And I guess the reason it was a little bit surprising is that they were worried that when they purchased food, maybe if they got a banana that had a blemish, it wouldn't last as long. So they wouldn't have the opportunity towards the end of the month to have other foods. So they were, again, sticking to those highly processed, long shelf life foods. Transportation was another theme that we heard consistently. Not having a car or a vehicle and relying on multimodal forms of transportation, such as walking and biking and transit. So if I have to walk a mile to the bus stop, and then I have to take the bus and shop, and then I have to take the bus back and then walk a mile, I might really think about getting a bag of oranges versus a bag of chips, because I'm going to have to carry that for quite a while. Or in the summer, not being able to purchase frozen foods or even milk because your commute to and from from the grocery store can take 2 to 3 hours. So you were afraid that they would perish along the way. So transportation was a definite issue. We also learned that the source of the food was concerning to them. You hear so many messages in the media about buy local and do buy this and don't buy that and organic, and it was overwhelming to them and often confusing. And then also personal. We learned that people didn't necessarily know what to do with a head of cauliflower. Even if it was on sale, it was a scary option for them. They really just didn't know what to do with asparagus when they got it home, and all they have is a hot plate or a skillet. So that was another common theme. So from that, we decided that we would take the information that we gleaned, and we then looked at strategies. What do we have now that's in place? What can we keep doing? And what are our strengths and what are our opportunities? And that information really led to the Health and Wellness Coalition 5-year strategic plan for healthy eating. And some of that has also dovetailed, and we're working collaboratively with some of our physical activity opportunities, making our community more walkable and bikeable for transportation, not just recreation. But out of all of this, I think the next step that was very important for our community was the Food Policy Committee development. And we needed an organization that could provide guidance and infrastructure for those big citywide changes that we need to see that will increase access to healthy foods. And Tammi is going to talk about being the chair of the Food Policy Committee on which I serve and some of the goals that we have in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Becky, I'm kind of curious. Your experience has so many different angles on public health. How do they all converge, and how do you go about prioritizing which projects to work on?
That's a great question. I think that in doing this a long time, some of the things that we've learned to prioritize are what are areas that we have support and community interest. People are interested in food. We can see that here. And so trying to capitalize on momentum when it comes along. It takes a long time to build up a campaign and to make community-wide change. And the best example I always give people is 10 years ago when we were trying to get our community to adopt a smoke-free ordinance, people were saying, oh my gosh, it's never gonna happen. The restaurants will collapse if we don't allow them to smoke. Now, if somebody walked in here and smoked today, what would we say? Get out, we don't like it, right? But that took a long time and a lot of awareness and a lot of passion from people and a lot of goodwill from our decision makers. So it's continuing to educate the community, it's continuing to educate our decision makers, and to continuing just to mobilize the community to be able to be brave and to make good choices, and to continue to mobilize the community to make brave choices.
Okay. Thank you, Becky. Our next panelist is Tammi Krier. Tammi is a registered and licensed dietitian and holds a master's degree in dietetics and nutrition from the University of Kansas Medical Center. She also holds a certificate of training in childhood and adolescent weight management. She's spent the past 8 years working in the retail, clinical, consultant, and community settings, promoting wellness and the importance of good nutrition. Tammi is currently the Healthy Eating Director for the Greater Wichita YMCA, Chair of the Health and Wellness Coalition of Wichita's Food Policy Committee, and President of the Wichita Dietetic Association. Welcome, Tammi.
All right, thank you for asking me to be here tonight. I wanted to kind of start off with talking a little bit about something Becky referenced. She mentioned the Health and Wellness Coalition is always focused on physical activity and healthy eating. And if I remember hearing correctly, you guys always thought healthy eating would be so easy to change and physical activity would be so hard to change in our community. 12 years later, physical activity has been very easy, not easy, I shouldn't say easy, but it's been something that's been slowly changed over time. The healthy eating part has been so much more challenging, and if you think about that, that's because we hold food so near and dear to our hearts. It's a big part of our culture, it's a big part of our feelings, our emotions. It's so ingrained into everything that we do in our life, and so healthy eating has been always just a very complex thing to tackle. And so kind of like we've made non-smoking the norm, we want to make healthy eating the norm as well. And I didn't come up with this, but I will reference that it was by Brian Wansink, who's a researcher. He always has said that you want to make healthy eating in a way and thinking about it as the CAN approach. So CAN, convenient, attractive, and normal. So what we're going to be working on as a food policy committee and here in the city of Wichita and in the Health and Wellness Coalition is how can we make healthy food convenient, attractive, normal? Because for a long time, the unhealthy food is what's convenient, attractive, and normal. So our work is focusing on that CAN approach. I wanted to paint a couple different pictures for you. Was one, what's going on here locally with the Food Policy Committee? What are we working on? And then a little bit bigger picture, Sedgwick County. You know, what's our food system look like in Sedgwick County? So I'll tell you about that just a little bit. And then at the state level, some of the legislation that's happened in the past year or so that impacts that food environment here locally where we are. So back to Wichita, what we're doing here is the Food Policy Committee is we're taking a couple of different approaches, but one thing we found is that it's been more challenging for growers to be able to sell their produce in the way of a market. We have a couple of wonderful farmers markets here in Wichita, but the process to become a farmers market is very cumbersome. So our group is starting to look at how can we simplify that process, how can we make it easier for folks to sell the produce that they have and get more of that produce available in a variety of different areas. So we're working with through that process, what it can look like, what's the ideal process, and then reaching out to the growers to get their feedback of what would make it easier for them as well to sell it. So that's one thing that we're working on. Another thing that we're working on is organizational policies related to food. And the reason why we're working on that is because we want to create more of that groundswell of a lot of different organizations, a lot of different work sites, where the places where people live, learn, earn, grow, and where they play. So we want all these different types of sites having an organizational policy that addresses the importance of having healthy food available. So we're working on creating policies or sample policies for other organizations to adopt that impact the vending at their site, but also impact maybe their catering options as well. And the purpose for that is also because we want to make it easier for organizations to adopt those. How many of you have a dietitian on site where you're working, or where you go to church, or where you play? Most people don't. So we want to make that easier for others to say, hey, we want healthier items available. What's a sample guideline we can follow, and who can we work with to make it happen? So we're working with vending companies to know what those policies are that we're putting out there, and then making it easier for those companies or those sites that have the vending to say, hey, we want to be healthier, how can we do it? And another aspect of this that's beautiful is that it helps keep those guidelines consistent. So your site's not asking for something different than your site, then your site, then your site. That gets really complex and inconsistent and confusing, and we don't want people confused. We just want to keep it pretty simple. So that's one thing we're working on. And another thing that we're working on is a big event in March. March is National Nutrition Month, so we want to bring people from all across the city in to learn about food, how food relates to them, how you can eat healthier, how you can use simple tools in your home to make healthy food available for your family, how to grocery shop and meal plan, and whatever people's needs are, they should be able to learn something about food and how to do it better at home at that event. So more to come on that one. Another thing we're doing is serving as more of a dot connector. So we are able to connect someone with some funds with another organization that is getting local produce out to the senior centers. So we're connecting those different organizations that don't know of each other. And another thing we're looking at is bringing in a program such as Double Up Food Bucks to help make that fresh produce more available through the farmers markets for those who might be on a program like SNAP. So it doubles their food dollars when they're purchasing fresh fruits and vegetables. So these are the areas where we're starting to push back and start working on to increase more access to healthy foods here in our own community. Another thing that I said I wanted to paint a picture about is Sedgwick County. So what's available in Sedgwick County, that sort of thing. And in 2014, the K-State Research and Extension Sedgwick County office did a food system assessment. And so what that assessment really looked at is what is available, what's grown, what's done with those foods, how's it processed, what's the consumption, what's the economic impact of what we have already going on in Sedgwick County. And what that found is that in Sedgwick County, we spend $1 billion on food every year. And if we spent 5% of that locally, that's about $55 million kept back in our local economy. So there's a lot of economic impact at stake. Another thing that it found is that Becky kind of mentioned this, we don't consume the adequate amount of fruits and vegetables here in Sedgwick County. We're way under. But on the other side of that, if we did eat all that's recommended, we can't support ourselves with that. But that's okay. We need a global, regional, and local food system and farms that we're pulling from in each of those areas. However, that really points to an opportunity here in Sedgwick County. If we change what we're producing, we could support ourselves a little bit differently in terms of having more fruits and vegetables available. And then another aspect that goes along with that is there's a large economic impact. The market value of what our fruits and vegetables are sold at here, that's produced here, is significant. So if we produce more of it, we can have another more significant impact on our economy with that as well. That also found that in the area of Sedgwick County, we have approximately 76% of our land is potential farmland. But raise your hand if you think 25% of it is used to produce fruits and vegetables. Do you think 10% is used to produce fruits and vegetables? 1% is used to produce fruits and vegetables. So another opportunity, and there's a lot of things at play to be able to do that, but it's definitely an opportunity. We're not producing that much. I'd also found that, looked at the perspectives of people. People like local, they like the idea of eating local foods, but they found it was challenging to do it. They found that it takes extra time, extra effort, extra trips, and then goes to lack of knowledge as well. They don't know what to do with some of that stuff that they can get here locally. So there's opportunities there as well. And overall, it really pointed to we can make impact on our local food system and what we're growing here locally. It just needs to be a consistent effort and a lot of people playing roles from different sectors to continue to make that happen. So it's Sedgwick County. And then kind of state of Kansas, a couple things that were at play is some bills or legislations that had passed recently. One being legislation around having a food and farm task force. So at the state level, we have a task force that's looking at that local food production system. How and what's impacting it in the state of Kansas? Where can we have opportunities to improve? What are some recommendations? And that was supposed to end at the end of 2015, and it was actually extended. So it will continue to do its work because it's too big and too important to let it go away. So that's something that is still at play. Another thing that's still at play is House Bill 2595 or Senate Bill 366, and what that particular thing is it actually kind of put power back to the state to preempt local jurisdiction in a lot of things around food. And it's important to know about because it's basically preventing local jurisdictions from giving, let's just say, licensing or ordinances, regulation for an organization to come in based on health disparities. So your local government can't decide you can have a permit and you can't because this is an unhealthy place and this is a healthy place. So you can't make that decision locally. Another thing that it does is say local jurisdictions can't implement food requirements around nutrition labeling. So here locally, we can't say City of Wichita or Sedgwick County, we have these requirements. Everyone has to do menu labeling when it doesn't happen in the next county. Only the state can make those particular rulings. What it does still allow to happen here locally is your local governments or your local jurisdictions to implement its own guidelines saying, we as a county, we are going to have healthier foods available and these are the guidelines we're going to follow for ourselves. They just can't push it back out on other organizations in that area. So it does still allow community gardens to happen. It does still allow some of those sort of things, but it's a very vague piece of legislation, so the impact over time will be something we'll continue to have to watch. And then the last piece of legislation I wanted to talk about is sales tax on food. That's something that has come up quite a bit in the last year or so, and I think we'll continue to see it come up because Kansas has a high rate of tax on food and many other states don't have that. And so that's something that keeps coming up as an area of interest and an opportunity or potential change in our state.
And I just wanted to ask also what, in your opinion, Wichita is doing right here in the city, and then what are some things that could be improved upon locally?
Some things, Well, some things we're doing right. One thing I would say is we do have really good farmers markets. And one thing that happened that I think is a right is that our public transportation system has in the past year or so rerouted so that it does actually go past the 21st and Ridge market. So that's a good thing because it gets those folks who maybe are on SNAP potentially or using the transportation system to a market where they can get that locally produced food and use that SNAP program there as well.
Is there more?
No, I was thinking about what we're doing wrong.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Brian Walker. Brian is the president and CEO of the Kansas Food Bank. He began his career in the food industry as a 16-year-old carryout boy for Bogart's and became experienced in the retail grocery business. In 1997, he joined the Kansas Food Bank as warehouse manager and became president and CEO in 2003. Along with increasing the efficiency of the kids' kitchens, rural delivery, and food procurement programs, Brian started the Food for Kids backpack program, providing weekend food to chronically hungry children each Friday during the school year. This program has grown from feeding 50 children each Friday in 2004 to feeding over 6,300 children now. Yeah. Oh, that was impressive. Another program Brian implemented is the Food Rescue Program, which collects meat, bread, produce, and other items from retail stores and distributes the food to partner agencies. There are over 700 partner agencies that the Kansas Food Bank works with across 85 counties. Last year, food distribution provided 10 million meals for hunger care, and Brian is a member of the Sedgwick County Food Policy Committee and the Kansas Appleseed Roundtable, working to address food security issues in Kansas. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. A lot of what I was going to talk about, these two ladies have already spoke about, so it makes my job a lot easier. But I want to, the food bank's been around 32 years, and when it was started 32 years ago, the basic goal of the food bank was just to put food into the hands of those folks that need it. So 32 years later, we've come up with lots of different ideas and targeted programs to meet those folks where they're at, the Food for Kids program, Senior Box program. And then the last year or so, with these ladies' help, we've really took a focus on, just what kind of food is the food bank providing. And we're actually, at our board level, we're going to make some commitments about, what kind of foods we carry, what kind of foods we purchase, and just have healthier foods available to those clients we serve. So that's my part of their discussion a little bit. And also looking at, again, some of this has been said tonight, but food access from the clients we serve. What we do know is that, roughly 50% of the clients that visit our pantries have high blood pressure, heart disease, those kind of issues. So the goal of the food bank is to not only put foods in their belly, but we're taking a look at, can we provide more fresh produce? What can we do to make access to nutritious food easier for these folks? Because we all know if you're on a limited income, as was said, if you have to shop at a convenience store, those dollars are not going to go as far. And we know is a lot of these folks are using their SNAP benefits or the former food stamp program at a convenience store, so that money's not going to go as far. We do know that a study we did years ago, it's a little outdated now, but most folks said that they wouldn't walk more than a mile to get to the grocery store for whatever reason, safety concerns. If you're in poor health, you can't do that. So we strategically look at our pantries and try to place those in neighborhoods where we feel that are food deserts. One of the things I also want to address is the concern that a lot of folks say that how can somebody be hungry, they're obese. The fact of the matter remains is when the only thing you have access to is high carb, high fat, fried foods, you're going to be obese. That doesn't mean you're not hungry. It's just the only thing that's available for you. So again, working with the Food Policy Council and our agencies, being able to provide, a more nutritious product is our goal moving forward. And just this last 3 weeks alone, we've been able to acquire, we worked a deal with the food bank in Kansas City, so we're acquiring a truckload about every week and a half of fresh produce. So we've been able to expand our fresh produce options to, we were carrots, summer fruit, nectarines, plums, sweet corn, raspberries, strawberries, and grapes. So we're just really trying to change our mix and putting a more nutritious product on the table of those we serve. A couple overall facts of the food banks. Again, we provided enough food for over 10 million meals. We do that through 700 partners, whether that be a school, a food pantry, a soup kitchen. Just about anybody in the 85 counties we serve have some that does food relief, has some sort of relationship with the Kansas Food Bank. One of our newest programs in the more rural areas is a senior box program. The senior box program is named after Senator Dole. That's who seniors in rural areas trust. And what we've done is we've strategically placed pre-made boxes of food in health departments. So if seniors are visiting the health department for whatever reason, they don't have to ask for the food. It's available for them. It could just be given to them. Because what we do know is most of them won't ask for help. They'll feed their dogs and cats before they'll feed themselves. So that's one of the things. And another initiative we just started is we have a tagline of shorten the line. Our goal again was to always feed people. Now we want to look at how do we shorten the line? How do we get folks out of the food line? So looking at ways to coordinate with the healthcare folks, with the housing folks, with the job folks, and what does that look like? Because you're never going to be out of the food line if you're always spending money on your medical bills, or if you're always having trouble with housing. So, that's down the road for us, but we hope to test that in a couple smaller communities, either later this year or the first of next year, that we would be the facilitator of that and hopefully put all those things under one roof, just to make life a little easier for our clients. Thank you.
Brian, what kinds of projects would the Kansas Food Bank invest in if money was no object?
If money was no object, we would, invest in the biggest cooler we could have. We'd work on a program, honestly, that we could take full loads of produce and then we could mix those loads to make produce more available. As a statewide issue, the ability for agencies to handle fresh produce is a problem. So invest in infrastructure for those agencies, coolers, freezers, those kind of things. That's what we would look at immediately.
Thank you, Brian. Now, our last panelist tonight is our surprise panelist, Dawn Henry, filling in for Alan tonight, who is ill. Dawn is the Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities, and there he provides senior management of the department's environmental work group. The group consists of environmental health, sewage treatment, stormwater, and water production and pumping. The four divisions provide a number of programs and services that protect natural resources in the community and safeguard the health, safety, and well-being of the citizens in Wichita. Dawn has a Bachelor of Science degree from Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas. He is a registered public health sanitarian, and he's worked his way up within the city's organization and held numerous positions since 1998, including Environmental Health Division Manager, Public Works and Utilities Water Quality Program Supervisor, and Environmental Health Inspector. Key projects that he's been involved with include the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project, North Industrial Corridor Groundwater Remediation Program, Regional Off-Site Stormwater Best Management Practice Program, and a Domestic Well Permit Project, among many others. So Dawn, to provide some of the information about water access and water issues. We've been talking a lot about food so far. Welcome, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and thanks for kind of shoving the water guy down to the end of the table, too. Appreciate that. But no, it's a pleasure to and a privilege to sit in for Alan King this evening. He wishes he could be here and extends his apology that he couldn't attend, but he's not feeling well, so you get the B team tonight. But anyway, making sure that resources are managed, our water resources are managed so that all users benefit and that the City of Wichita and our other customers' needs are being met at a reasonable cost are key to what we do. And that being said, in order to make all that happen, there's a number of programs that are involved as far as not only producing water and delivering it to your tap so when you turn it on that it's there, but also to protect the water resources that we have to make sure that they are compliant, that they're clean, and so that the rainfall that falls here in the city before it returns to the river is of good high quality and meets regulatory demands, and also that the water that we consume is treated, and when it's returned to the environment that it's clean. Just like when we expect water in Cheney Reservoir or in the Little Arkansas River that we treat and put back into the ground in the Eccles Beds well field, that water is suitable for us to treat and consume. We want to be good stewards and make sure that the water that we consume and return to the environment is clean for those who are downstream of Wichita. Another thing that's important is the access to water, to make sure that when you turn on your tap, it's there, especially in times of drought conditions, a 1% Dust Bowl type drought. That's what we're planning for. And also to make sure we're involved in regional planning, to make sure that the competing interests of our users are taken into consideration and that the City of Wichita is at the table on those regional planning issues. Our water utility, it draws water from two major resources. One is Cheney Reservoir, of which the City of Wichita is the only user in terms of consuming water. Of course, we've got recreation, boating, sailing, fishing, but in terms of using the water for consumption, the City of Wichita is the only consumer. The other half of our water supply comes from the Eccles Beds well field north of Wichita. That's one of the major sources of water in central Kansas, and there's a lot of competing interests in the Eccles Beds well field. The City of Wichita has the largest water right and senior water rights, but that also includes other municipalities and rural water districts, as well as agriculture, industrial, and commercial uses. One of the key projects we have going out in the Eccles Beds well field is our aquifer storage and recovery project. Whenever we have enough flow in the river and the water that's in the river meets our treatment parameters, we're able to, through a permit, pull that water out of the river, treat it to drinking water standards, and either inject it back into the aquifer to bank credits for future use and keep the aquifer levels higher, or we're able to send that water directly to town to offset the water that we use either from the Eccles Beds or from Cheney Reservoir. A big challenge that we have, well, first of all, we're lucky and very blessed in the community here that we've got abundant clean water supplies. We've got enough water in Cheney Reservoir and in the Eccles Beds well field right now that we've got enough water to sustain this community well out into the future. We're talking 50, 60 years into the planning horizon. And that's under current demands, our projected demands, unless we find ourselves in a Dust Bowl type drought, and that's where we get in trouble. And so our planning efforts now are geared towards making sure that our community is sustainable through a 1% drought so that our economy continues, our businesses stay here, industries continue, and that our domestic users still have the supply that they need with minimal restrictions and minimal impact to rates too. And that's where our aquifer storage and recovery project really folds into that. This past federal legislative session, some legislation was passed that extended the opportunity for federal funds to be allocated to the ASR project, and we were very thankful for that. This October, that funding opportunity would have ended had that legislation not been successful. There's possibly $20 million left on the table that could go to future ASR improvement projects to make sure that we've got that sustainable resource. We've got two people involved heavily in the regional planning efforts. Alan King, our Director of Public Works and Utilities. He's a member of the Kansas Water Authority. It's a 13-member voting panel that advises the governor and the Kansas Water Office on water policy issues. And then the Deputy Director of Public Works and Utilities, Joe Pager, he's on the Equus Walnut Regional Advisory Committee, who that committee is responsible for this regional planning in this area to make sure it's in alignment with the governor's 50-year water vision and also make recommendations to the Kansas Water Authority.
Thank you. I'm just curious, how does Wichita stack up against other major Midwestern cities as far as water management and planning?
I mean, you know, we're lucky here, like I said before, that we've, you know, water is abundant and it's relatively clean too, and easy to treat. We've got a really, really good water supply. You know, when we turn the water on at the tap here in Wichita, we're fortunate due to the quality of water that comes out. Growing up in Texas, especially in West Texas, I lived in a number of communities where even though the water was safe to drink, it just wasn't pleasant to drink it. You know, even a pop fountain or tea that you would get at a restaurant would taste bad. And that said, with the high quality of water we have and the abundant supply, we're able, when we look at how we compare to other cities of similar size and major cities in terms of utility, we're in the lower quartile of rates and costs for water in this community, so we compare very well.
Thank you very much, Don. Now we're going to have a little discussion here for a bit, and then after that is the Q&A. So as you're thinking of questions, if you don't have something to write them down on, we have little Engage ICT notepads that you can take advantage of at our info table as well. Yes.
For those of you who are texting me, that is my correct number. It's
working.
I wasn't texting, I was keeping notes. But for those of you who aren't texting me, I didn't give you a fictitious number. That is my number. So if you don't get a response from me during this, it's not because I'm not talking, I'm listening. But once I got away from here, then I would send you a text back stating that yes, it is my correct number.
There, we got that. We got that settled. I want to go back to the topic of food deserts. Becky, you defined it very well. I'm curious about both the prevalence of food deserts, which maybe you can elaborate just a little bit on in the Wichita area, but how it got that way, how this situation has progressed and evolved, and the causes.
We definitely see food deserts and clustering. I mean, clustering of zip code, and it's probably not surprising to you all. It's closer to the core of our community. As with most communities, we're kind of sprawling out, and we're trying to encourage making our community more walkable and bikeable and bringing people back to the core and creating opportunities for that. I will say that, we hear all the time, we need a grocery store downtown, we need a grocery store downtown, and I don't dispute that at all, but Wichita is doing it right, because if you look at the literature, communities that are successful in building back their core, building back their downtown, start with having residents that need food. And then once there's a need, a grocery store will come. And so, one of the things that we've been really consistently trying to reinforce is that we don't bash Dillon's, we don't bash Walmart, we don't bash anyone if there is a grocery store closing. It's an economic decision for them, but we continue to keep that communication line open and partner with them so that they will come to us and ask us questions. At the Food Policy Committee, for example, we've had Save a Lot come and talk to us and say, what do you need? Where can we put a store? Where it would be the most beneficial for the community members? So we see the food deserts, really clumping in certain zip codes around lower income areas in our community. And so just continuing to keeping the conversation open and having the economic need will drive that. It'll drive the market.
Does anyone want to weigh in on this issue? Okay. I don't think I had mentioned that earlier. You all can jump in on all of these questions if you have something to add. Now, the populations affected the most by issues of food access is that, we talk about, the poverty level and that sort of thing. Is it really just what you expect, or are there other populations that are greatly affected by issues of food access as well?
I would assume, but Becky would know more, but I would answer it. I would assume that when you look at those zip codes, that it's where pockets of poverty are, right? It's in our neighborhoods where there's a higher rate of poverty. The stores have closed for whatever reason, not profitable, or those kind of things. So, of course, it would be in those higher poverty areas. And I want to make a point too. It doesn't mean that there's no food, right? I mean, there could be a gas station on the corner. It doesn't mean that there's no food. It just means the access to quality food, nutritious food, and not paying an extraordinary price of that food is what is partly of what makes up those food deserts.
I just want to jump in too. I think that it's in our community, there are parts of the state, parts of the nation, obviously, where access to healthy food means, like in rural Kansas, where maybe the Cisco truck comes once a week, and when the local Dillon's or whatever store it is runs out of apples, they're out of apples till the next truck comes. That's a totally different access issue than we have in Wichita. We have food, but Brian and Tammi and I talk about this all the time in the Food Policy Committee. I think if we stocked the Dillon's or the Quick Trips from floor to ceiling with apples and bananas, people are still going to go for the roller meat because that's what they're used to eating and that's what they grow up on. So it's not only changing the access, but it's also coupling that with changing people's perceptions and people's knowledge and understanding and awareness of what healthy food is and how to prepare it and how to cook it and how to enjoy it. So it really has to be combined. It can't just be giving people a bunch of fresh produce if they don't know anything to do with it. So Brian's really skillful about saying, okay, if we do get more groceries, more freezer space and more refrigeration space, how can we make sure there's cooking classes that accompany that so that our clients know how to use that?
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would kind of take it in a different approach a little bit too. It kind of speaks to the importance and the power of policy as well, because access to healthy foods, that impacts everybody. I mean, if we have to demand it as well so that it's there. If we never ask for the brown rice when you go out to eat at the restaurant that always fried rice, they'll never add it until people start asking for it, for example. But that demand is important, but the policies are also important. And why I say that is you see that in the impact of school nutrition. So there's been a lot of changes in school nutrition over the last several years, have very specific guidelines about what kind of food can be sold in the school environment. And because of those changes, it has slowly over time forced all those manufacturers to change what they're selling and what they're making so that they meet these nutrition requirements because they still want to be sold. So access is, what's available to people in low income areas, but access is what's available to all of us, and policy is very important in driving the norms and driving what manufacturers are making and driving what's available or procured at your work site or your food bank or your hospital too.
What are some ways that policy makes an impact on those issues?
For example, like if you have a policy that says, let's talk about vending for a second. In our work site, we want half of our items to be healthier. Well, that's pretty vague. But if you have a policy that says half our items need to be healthier, and this is what's healthy, under 200 calories, under 10 grams of fat, just for example, then only those items can be in there. And it starts to make an impact that only these things can be in this section. And so what foods are those? And as the vending company, maybe you're thinking, wow, we need to still be able to sell stuff. We need to find more options available and make sure we're ordering them, because before people didn't ask for them, now they're asking for them. So it changes what that the system behind it of what's going on as well.
And as I'm listening to it, these young ladies and Brian, we at Church on the Street, we haven't assessed the nutritional value of it. And what Brian said really just, I knew it all along, but from hearing it from him, it's not how much you eat, it's what you eat that makes you a beast. I like chips. I snack all night, and the end result of that is what I am today. And to hear the nutritional value of it, which I've always known, but to me it just tastes a little better, but hey. To hear that, that's going to cause me to go back to our board and look at our nutritional value, look at the things that we're doing. Are we a part of the problem? Are we a part of the solution? And from what I'm hearing today, I think we're part of the problem. So thank you. Like I said, I'm not texting. I was taking notes on my phone. For those of you who was looking, I'm not, those are texts. But I have a note screen on there where I take notes. So I hear what you say, and thank you, ladies, Brian, for what you're doing. Thank you for keeping the water
contact us.
Well, and that's one thing that I think I just want to make one comment, and Brian and Tammi can certainly jump in, but, I understand. I truly get it that people are food insecure, and we want to address that, and the Kansas Food Bank should be applauded for the fantastic work that they do. And what we're working with Brian on is an all things equal. If price were equal, so for example, if the Kansas Food Bank, and most people don't know, they don't just get food donated, they buy food. So in their procurement, if applesauce and sugar-free applesauce are the same price, pick the sugar-free applesauce. If low sodium something is available versus the regular and it's the same cost, pick the healthier item. So we're trying to work with Brian, and he mentioned some of that work, but also do that in your own lives. If all things are equal, try, and you can afford the healthier options, try them. And within our community, we try and raise awareness that, you may not be able to afford fresh fruits and vegetables, but maybe frozen is a good option for you. It's lower cost. So there's lots of ways that we can work together. Yes. And also then I challenge you all, I'm sure during the Christmas holidays or the Stamp Out Hunger food drive with the U.S. Postal Carriers, whatever it is, if you're making donations, think about what you're donating, thinking about what you're putting in that box or that bag to give them. And think about people who are insecure, they want to eat healthy too. So make some selections that will make a difference in their lives.
Thank you. Someone mentioned community gardens. I don't remember now who it was, but can more community gardens really impact the food deserts that we're seeing? Is that something that can make a big enough dent to kind of make a difference here, or can they?
Community gardens are wonderful. They can make a difference anywhere. In the suburbs, in the inner core, it doesn't matter where it is. They can make a big impact. There's always challenges that come with community gardens. I mean, somebody has to manage it, somebody has to run it and keep it going. But there's a lot of interested individuals that want to do that. There's lists out there available, like in the city of Wichita, where do we have community gardens? Where can you get involved? So the option is there, and you're seeing an increase in interest in community gardens. It's just, as a community, someone needs to take ownership. When you have community gardens, you see a lot of community building that goes along with it. It's a little bit safer. People are watching out for each other. They're watching out for their property. They're eating healthier. I mean, so there's a lot of benefits to having a community garden, and starting one is always a wonderful thing. And just keep about how you're going to keep it going as well.
I mean, and I just say too that a lot of times when you say community garden, people are thinking, again, in poverty-stricken neighborhoods to help feed those. But community gardens are great in any community, right? It ties neighbors back together that don't even know each other. So it's not just community gardens for poverty-stricken areas.
And you might be thinking, how would you connect, water to community gardens? Well, here in Wichita, we're really fortunate to have abundant groundwater. Especially if you're east of Hillside in Wichita, and the further west you go, the better it gets. Now, that doesn't speak real well to the interior core of our city, but there are places where you can put a well in there too. It's spotty, but you can get them in. But the good thing about that is that you can drill a private domestic water well and irrigate up to 2.5 acres in the state of Kansas without having to get a water appropriations or a permit through the Department of Agriculture. So basically your cost for that is installation of the well and the electricity to pump it.
What would you recommend to someone who's interested in doing that for how to go about digging a well or having a well dug?
Yeah, what I would recommend folks to do is to contact the City of Wichita Environmental Health Division. Go on wichita.gov and just look for water wells. And we've got a program through the city where you get a permit, and we inspect the well to make sure that the installer has done it to code, that it meets state standards and everything. That way, you get a well that's constructed that will work like it's supposed to.
Thank you. What issues are we facing regarding water, other than this that you're mentioning now, that can impact food access?
Well, I guess probably it would be cost. It takes water to produce food. And so it takes water to not only grow food, but also to prepare food, to serve food. So the impact of the cost of the water in those processes is something that probably has an impact on food. And that's why it's important, as stewards of public funds and of the utility, that we find ways to operate as efficiently as we can and to optimize our resources.
Have our water resources changed in the last 10 to 20 years? I mean, it's a pretty good situation now. Was it this good 20 years ago?
The record, in terms of our Equus beds well field, the record low level for the Equus beds was in 1993. And so things have changed considerably for the better since 1993. And that's a combination of the way we manage our resources, taking more from Cheney and leaving more in the Equus beds, also conservation, and with the the outset of better technology as far as industrial and commercial processes, as well as our in-home appliances, and just awareness has curbed our demand, and with our operations, we've turned that around, and the Equus beds wellfield are really healthy now. We've got to take care of them. We've got to be aware. We've got to manage our resources wisely, and to make sure that it's available as we go into the future. Because as people maximize their water rights, that's when we could get into trouble sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from the crowd that was handed to me a few minutes ago. The question is, what long-term impact will A Better Wichita's success have on access, food, and well-being? And A Better Wichita is the group opposed to the sales tax increase. Oh, success is in quotes. Okay, there you go. Maybe this question is from Sean. Possibly. Oh, thanks.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Okay. What long-term impact will A Better Wichita's success have on access, food, and well-being? And that's the group opposed to the sales tax increase.
Yeah, I can start. I think transit. I think that not being able to access our transit, I know our community right now, not everybody understands the importance of transit. Many of us don't utilize transit. We have great roads here. I always am amazed by this, but the average commute time in Wichita is 17 minutes. The average commute time in Wichita during rush hour is 17.5 minutes. And so and we have way too much free parking. And so there's no real benefit for people to not jump in their car and go themselves. And so if we had able to have expanded our transit, made it easier for people, it's a barrier. If you rely on transit and transit doesn't run on Sunday, and maybe that's your only day off work to get to the laundry and to get to the grocery, and you can't get there on Sunday. So that's a huge barrier. The other thing that I just wanted to mention real quickly is when grocery stores close or people don't have access to grocery stores, it's not just food, but many times they often that's their source for postage, for getting stamps, for maybe paying their bills, for other things. So sometimes even the libraries that are inside of the grocery store. So it's not always just food. It's also about their culture and other things that they have to enhance their life and make their life easier.
Anyone else want to weigh in? Good. Okay. A couple other questions from the crowd here. How does our water stack up to EPA standards, lead in particular, and fertilizer runoff?
Okay, yeah, a couple of very good questions. In terms of the EPA standards for lead in the water, the recent issues with lead in the water, I think a lot of folks think of Flint, Michigan. Mm-hmm. The source of the lead was mostly from private service lines, and the source of the water changed without adjusting their treatment processes, and that allowed the lead in private lines to leach out into the water. Here in Wichita, we're lucky because that's something that we've had our finger on for a long time. And we're very near to making sure that all of the lead service connections in the city are eliminated. I mean, there are very few left, and we've got a project running to drive that to zero in the near term. We also have measures in our treatment process in place to make sure that our water is treated properly and it's of the condition that it will not leach lead out of plumbing inside the homes. And so we're in a very good position there. In terms of fertilizer runoff, that's a tough one that we address, largely through education and outreach to homeowners. Our MS4 or our municipal stormwater permit, we're compliant with all aspects of that permit. And our biggest concern right now, and the EPA and regulators' concerns, are sediment loading into our rivers and streams, because one, sediment can affect water quality, but it's also a good indicator that other things are getting into the water along with that sediment, like fertilizer. And our development community here in Wichita, like other communities across the state and the nation, are pretty heavy regulated when it comes to controlling sediment into runoff. And anytime a development is 1 acre or larger, either a new development or a redevelopment, they're required by federal, state, and local laws to put in some pretty significant devices or take measures to control sediment, that it stays on their property and doesn't get into the runoff. And one of the projects that we're really proud of here in the city that is really cutting edge and visionary is that we've been able to work with KDHE and the EPA and local development to come up with a new program that will allow development to invest their dollars rather than on-site, allow them to invest their dollars off-site upstream of Wichita and other watersheds to make improvement on agricultural lands. And that does two things, three things really. It's a win-win-win. One, it drives that life cycle cost for development down from about $100 an acre to $19 an acre. Another thing that it does is that it removes at least twice the amount of sediment from the runoff that it would with an on-site device, so you get more bang for the buck. And another thing that it does is it addresses water quality on a regional level. It's very difficult to manage, agricultural producers, and that they typically do things, the right thing for their business economically, and it could be expensive to make shifts to do certain things like no-till farming. And so this will allow the city of Wichita and the agriculture community to work together to improve water quality by investing local dollars in those upstream watersheds.
I have another question that's pretty much directed right at you, Don. Is there a possibility that Wichita Water might become privatized?
No, there's not. Whoever asked the question is referring to the project that we have going on now, where we're looking at bringing some private investment into the utility. And that whole project is about keeping rates down for ratepayers and addressing the deferred maintenance and the growth projects that we have programmed, managing, prioritizing our CIP. Right now the way we fund our projects is through general bond obligations, obligated debt. And so we're looking at ways to bring additional resources, upfront cash, to invest into our utility to do projects so that we save money long term. But council has been very clear in that the city will continue to own and maintain and manage the assets as well as control the rates.
Thank you. In what ways do food and water access issues ripple into other parts of the community? This is something maybe I suspect Becky will want to jump in on. But for example, how is the economy affected? How are all of the facets of a community touched by these issues?
I think it's really important. I had a great meeting this morning with someone, and we were talking about the link between health and economic development. And we want people to be healthy. We want them to be healthy so that they can be productive and contributing members of our society. We know that people who eat healthy or are physically active are more productive at work. They have a healthier lifestyle. So we need to make sure that our system supports that. We need to have a transportation system that allows people to use walking and biking and transit to be able to get to and from work and to health care, and then also to access to healthy foods. So just making sure that we're creating an environment for people to be able to have health is really important. They will become more productive. Sometimes we make the assumption that people don't want to work, but sometimes people can't because they can't get there or because their health isn't good enough for them to be able to do that.
Not area for a church on the street or anything like that. I looked at it from 19 years of law enforcement experience. Drives crime rate up if people don't have access to food and they can't get to and from. She touched on it briefly. Transportation. if those stores are not being placed in the neighborhood or anything like that, and this is the only law enforcement question that I will take, that if they can't get milk, if they can't get these necessities, it drives a person's self-worth down. So I look at it not only from a nutritional aspect of it, but from the criminal enterprise of it. And it's, if you don't have the basic necessities that they can walk and go to and fro from, it's going to impact it. No ifs, no ands, no buts, no maybes. It is going to impact it. I don't think that we look at it from that perspective often enough, but I think that we need to look at it from that perspective, because when you're pulling out of neighborhoods, when you're doing those type of things, my tenure on the police department, I seen it. And if they don't have basic necessities, the crime rate is gonna go up. If they don't have enough money to reach, to get to and from, like the transportation, if they don't have a car, if the bus is not available, those type of issues, it's going to impact every community that it touches. So I would look at it from that perspective. I've been out of law enforcement for a while, but I will tell you, if you ask law enforcement those type of those questions, and those are the people that I'm going to refer you to. So if you have any law enforcement questions, I suggest that you get the chief, get the chief involved, get city council involved. They have the information there that what happens when basic necessities, not even healthy necessities, is taken out of a community.
You know, a couple of words that I picked up on there were ripple effect and economy. And I think one of the main influencing factors that we can have there is innovative leadership in our community. And I'd like to, kind of tip our hats to some of the things that we're already doing. I mentioned the Offsite Water Quality BMP program, and that's a good example of the private and public sector and other regional partners working together to drive costs down for businesses here in the community, which saves money, helps pay people to work, puts money in people's pockets to buy food with, to pay for their water. Another thing that's been really innovative in this community, folks may not be aware that there's quite a bit of households and businesses that are on private domestic water wells in this community. And they either choose not to connect to city water, or they may not have access to city water because a main hasn't been extended there and it's very costly. Another thing that folds into that is there's about 8,000 surface acres right through the city of the center of the city from north to south, where we have contaminated groundwater under the ground because of industrial solvents in the groundwater. And the city of Wichita manages two projects, the Gilbert and Mosley project and the North Industrial Corridor, where the city has partnered with private business owners and the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, the EPA, to put in place programs that clean up and remediate the groundwater and avoid the stigma of a national Superfund priorities list. And so we're working together to clean the groundwater up in such a way that that banks will still loan money on properties and that commerce can continue. And so I think more innovative leadership in the community can have that ripple effect that you're talking about.
Okay. Tammy?
I was going to mention the impact that nutrition has on the ability to learn. It's not brought to the level it should be sometimes and discussed, but you have hungry kids, and you talk about access to healthy foods. You have hungry kids. Hungry kids don't learn very good. They learn very poorly. They perform poorly. They have behavior problems when they're in school. If they're having behavior problems when they're in school, they might not be in the classroom as much. They're not learning as well. It's all a big nasty mess, a cycle that kids get stuck into, and that access to healthy foods, they might be overfed, but they're undernourished a lot of times. And so the impact of nutrition, their ability to learn and test scores, classroom behavior problems, those are all really interrelated as well.
I'm going to ask this question that I was just handed because it relates directly to what you're talking about. What do you suggest that school food drives stockpile the most of?
What do you mean by school food drives?
If you're, a canned food drive or whatever it is, you bring non-perishables to school. I mean, should it be a canned food drive, or should there be some other foods that are being, maybe this is a good question for Brian, what foods should we be asking for?
Well, I mean, of course, we like any food, right? It's about feeding people. But, I mean, as we've talked tonight, just that option, right? If there's no salt green beans, then buy no salt green beans. If there's, pears that aren't in sugar, buy pears that aren't in sugar. I mean, if the choice is there, then, make the healthy food choice, right? Brown instead of white, all those things that I had to learn myself. So that's what I would suggest if you want to do that is, and I would suggest to make it a project at your school. Why are you doing a healthy food drive? Because we all need to eat better, and the community needs to eat better and healthy. And so make a project out of it, not just, supplying food so, we could help food insecure folks, but make a whole project out of it. And I'm sure everybody at this table would, if somebody has that idea, we'd love to talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question from the audience. I've got several here to read. I understand that Kansas is one of only 16 states to charge sales tax on food. Could healthy food become tax-free?
I mean, I've always, this probably get me in trouble, but I've always been, I'm not opposed to a tax on pop and chips and that kind of stuff. But I think we ought to get rid of sales tax on all food. I think it's ridiculous that we in this state that we do this. It's a tax that punishes low-income folks, and it's just ridiculous that we're still having this discussion, in my opinion.
I was just I mentioned that it keeps coming up. It's coming up in our state legislature. So if you care about it, contact your legislators. Make sure they know how you feel about things. If you don't reach out to the people who are in our elected offices to let your voice be heard, whether it's yay or nay for something, they don't know. So take action.
Let me add to what I just said to keep me out of trouble. To tax. No, I get rid of the tax. But even on what we consider non-healthy foods, it's. The cigarette tax. Let's raise cigarette tax, and more people are going to quit smoking. We all have our vices, right? And so, even if you tax chips and pop and what everybody thinks is unhealthy, of course, who gets to be the decision maker? But we all have our vices, and they're different. And so some folks are always going to eat chips, pop, and things that aren't good for you. And that's going to be a part of their diet. So I'll take back what I said. I just get rid of the tax on everything.
I just want to say one thing. When we're talking about, sales tax and contacting your decision maker, this is such a pivotal time in our community and in our state and in our nation. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you what's important to you. I know that our work that we're doing with the Health and Wellness Coalition and with HealthICT and the Health Alliance and the Kansas Public Health Association is really focusing on reminding the community and our decision makers that arts, culture, health, and education play a significant role in the vitality of a community. And so find out what you want to find out to make your own decision. Community partners came together a few weeks ago, or a month ago now in June, and we had a candidate forum on health for the Board of County Commission positions, and some of you were in that room and attended, and thank you. But one of the questions that we asked was about food, and I think some people were surprised that we would ask county commissioners a question about food, but our county commission in Sedgwick County also serves as our Board of Health, and food plays a significant role in the health of the community. So find your information, make good decisions, and then more than anything, make sure you get out and vote in November. And we've just launched a campaign this week called Vote Like a Mother, where we want everybody to get out and to make sure that you vote and vote with intention, and especially for young families and young moms, vote for what's most important to your families. So vote like a mother.
Here's another water question. Why is it that Roundup in our drinking water is allowed 7,000 times greater than in Europe?
Well, excuse me, I really can't answer that question, but what I would direct you to do is to look at the EPA standards for those constituents, and that's the reason for what they are. I don't know why Europe's are less and why ours are what they are. That's not a city of Wichita regulation. That's a federal regulation that we have to meet.
Okay. With the expansion of suburbs, when inner city schools expanding to those suburbs, how can we keep the hollowing out from eroding Wichita? How can we make mixed neighborhoods to keep stores in our city? And why do our works support these suburbs? I'm sorry, I kind of slaughtered that. Did you catch the drift of that question? Should I read it again? Okay. Sorry, there's this handwriting. You guys are like preventing me from getting my walk in by handing me all these questions. Okay, we'll see. With the expansion of suburbs, in relation to that, when inner city schools expanding to those suburbs, how can we keep the hollowing out from eroding Wichita? How can we make mixed neighborhoods to keep stores in our city? And why do our works support these suburbs?
I think the question is, we're sprawling out and the core is suffering, the core of our community. And I'll take a shot at that and then anyone else jump in, and this is just my opinion, but if we want the core of our community to thrive, then support the core of our community and go downtown and, be a part of the restaurants that are there and visit the pop-up park and use the biking lanes that we've put in, 35 miles of new bike lanes just last year alone within our city. So if we want things to go back to the core of our community, we need to support the core of our community. Business will follow. Money follows people's feet, and don't forget that. So, just a thought.
I was taught a poem a long time ago, and the title of the poem was called "A Minute." And no, I don't have it written down anywhere, and no, I don't have a great memory, but my mother made me memorize that. But it simply says, "I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Yes, it's only just a minute, but our children's future's in it." When we look at eroding communities, and when we look at eroding downtowns and all the rest of that good stuff, the decisions that we make not only impact our lives, but it impacts our kids' lives. So, saying that, I said all that to say this, is if you want to make the difference, if you want to make future difference, it starts with the decisions that you make today. It starts with the upbringing and of the way that you upbring your kid. You bring your kids on. Because they're not there doesn't mean the values are not there. So, only thing that I'm saying to you is you got to look at what you're discussing today, how it's going to impact downtown, suburbs, anything tomorrow. We think that in our hastiness to make a decision, we think that it's just going to impact us. It's not going to impact you. It's going to impact my grandson. It's going to impact my daughter. It's going to impact his kids. And those are the things that we have to become mindful of while we're giving our opinions, giving our thoughts, and all the rest of that good stuff. So the way that I read that question, the way that I hear that question, it's based on the decisions that you make today. Separate is not always equal. And if we continue to move out, we are going to damage the core of Wichita. I don't care where you live, come back. Come back, do the cleanups. Come back, feed the homeless. Come back, feed and do something for somebody that can't do anything for you. When you do that, you make Wichita, as I heard over this last campaign, great again. And it starts at home. It doesn't start anywhere else. It starts at home. So if you want to make the difference, it starts with each and every one of you, and it starts at my front door. But we have to focus on the decisions that we make today will impact people tomorrow.
And I think we need to be prepared to invest in every neighborhood, not just the core neighborhoods. So, and you have to be willing to say, it's not my neighborhood, but we need to invest in that neighborhood. Right. So, when you look at where we spend our tax dollars and those kind of things, I mean, it's something that everybody has to be invested in to keep our neighborhoods vibrant.
Thank you. A couple of questions here. The average national age of our farmers is 58. Should we be concerned about our future food production availability? And then the second question going along with that, what can we do to increase the interest in farming more than 1% of our usable land for fruits and veggies?
I know nothing about farming, but what I do know is the first thing we need to do about farming is we need to teach our kids that the food doesn't come off the grocery store shelf, right? That somebody has to grow it. There are farmers that do that. We did some work out of Fort Hays State a year or so ago, and they spent a whole year talking about hunger. And one of the students said to me, you know what? I'm required to take this class that I sit on a couch and I talk to an empty couch. And he said, but nowhere does this university teach a class that explains where food comes from. So, I mean, that's where we need to start with farming. Again, I'm not an expert. I think the more important thing with farming is we have to feed billions of people, right? I mean, it's not just about the United States, it's about the world. And so I think the lack of farmers is a big concern. I don't know enough about the laws and taxes and all that stuff, but I mean, I think it's something that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
I don't know specific programs that are going on, but there are innovative programs out there that are looking at that are addressing that, the raising age of our farmers and how to get the kids to come back home who've gone off to college to take back over that farm. And there is more emphasis of looking at farming as a business, not just putting things in the ground and getting it out. You know, how do we run it like a business? How do we be efficient? How do we use the best use of our resources? Make maybe farm more land with less than what we have. So there are some innovative programs out there looking at that and getting people interested in farming, even on a small scale. So it's maybe someone who has their day job, but they're starting to grow and produce and sell some of their product on a smaller scale as well. But encouraging those folks, frequenting those folks that are doing it is also important as well.
And when I say come back, I don't mean move back. When I say come back, I mean come back in the communities. Most people look at community service hours as something negative. Community service is positive on resumes and everything else, but the negative perception that we've put on it, they don't want to do it. And you have to give back to the community that gave to you. And I'm not telling move from Andover. I'm not telling you to move from Goddard. I'm not telling you to move from anything. The only thing that I'm telling you is spend the time down here. I had one Sunday that has impacted me for the rest of my life. And I used to have the police perspective, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. When I looked at it, I looked at homelessness as something that you want it to be. And it's not. If you come down I will encourage you to come down one weekend. You have my number. Call me in advance because most of you won't call me in advance because if you call me in advance, I'm gonna put you to work. But I want you to see the need for everything that we're discussing up here, the water, the food, the contributing back to your community to make your community strong again. So If it's not dealing with the homeless, there is other volunteering programs down here that you can get involved in. But it goes back to that minute that I was telling you about. If you ignore it, your kids will suffer for it.
I did think of one other thing. As far as the aging population of farmers and programs that are addressing that, K-State Research and Extension, the extension offices are an area that is pretty well tooled to start looking at that if they're not already, or can continue looking at that. And the way that, like here locally at the Sedgwick County Extension Office, they develop their programs, it's based on input from program development committees. So they're taking people from the community onto these committees to help design what programs they're going to offer in the future. One program could be tailored to, if it's not already, increasing production of fruits and vegetables locally, teaching people how to do it. What are the tools and skills you need to be able to do that? So being involved at that K-State Research and Extension level is a way to help decide and pinpoint what programs are going to be offered in the future. Programs help get people involved and learning as well.
Does research show that people in states without the sales tax on healthy food actually eat healthier? Is there research on that we have seen? Okay. Well, maybe that'll be forthcoming. What specific recommendations do you panelists have for voters and how their votes can improve healthy eating in Wichita?
I think right now, probably the only vote that would directly significantly impact Wichita is the Sedgwick County Commission race. We still have 2 positions open for Sedgwick County. We went through the primary, and now we have 2 open seats for the Board of County Commission. And as I mentioned, the Board of County Commissioners also serve in our community as the Board of Health. And so they have opportunities to pass resolutions and to implement programs and initiatives and policies that could potentially impact the health of the residents that we live in, the area that we live in regarding food. So I would encourage you all to look at the county commissioners and the candidates that are running for that position and know what their stance is on issues related to food and food access. And if you can't find it, call and ask them, or ask to sit down and meet with them and find out.
A follow-up to that, Becky, we were talking about local and state legislation as well as the representatives you're mentioning. What are some resources that people can use to quickly figure out kind of where they stand on these issues?
I'm going to be a little self-serving, but if you go to the Vote Like a Mother Facebook page and like us, we do have information, and we are non-biased. We are not supporting any candidates, and we're not supporting any party. The main tool that you will find is that we have resources of where you can find information on candidates' opinions. The other thing is the Wichita Eagle editorial board always does a really fine job of interviewing candidates, and then if you just go to their website now, the information is still there. And health, I'm glad to see this year was also included as one of those topics. But even if you go to and you just put in a search engine candidates views, usually there's several different websites, and depending on your topic, some people are health voters, some people are education voters, some people are economic voters, whatever it may be. So there's lots of ways to be able to find that information, but Vote Like a Mother does have some of those resources regarding arts, culture, health, and education.
Any other thoughts? Okay.
Only thing that I encourage people to do is vote. To me, it's your responsibility. Stop what you're doing, vote. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice.
Thank you. Now, a few of you have touched on different ways that people can make a difference, but that's something that I always want to ask. What can we do to make a difference and make an impact? Volunteering, contacting your representatives. What are some things that people can do to impact this topic in our community?
Ladies first.
I'll go first, then I'll be done. From the food banks, no, not really. Hey, from the food bank's point of view, it's just not only food, but get involved in what you're passionate about. I mean, you're all not here tonight just because it's food, but don't be a Monday morning quarterback, right? Get involved in what you're passionate about. As far as the food side goes of it, volunteer at a local pantry, volunteer at the food bank. There's churches in communities everywhere that have pantries. So, volunteer and get involved in whatever it is that really intrigues you. Get involved in that, and then, of course, get involved in this healthy effort. Right? Make Wichita a healthier place, and it will be a better community.
I have two suggestions. Number one is be a champion. You don't have to be the dietitian or the chair of your wellness committee or an HR to be a champion at your work site. And many initiatives, especially health initiatives, really start organically. We mentioned smoking earlier. First we didn't smoke in schools because nobody thinks you should smoke around kids. And then we thought, well, maybe it's not a good idea to smoke in the hospitals. And then work sites were like, yeah, I don't think we should probably have smoking in work sites either. And then pretty much it was just the norm. And the same thing's happening with food. Our schools are making healthier food choices. We're going to start doing it in the work sites. Be the champion at your work site. Be the champion at your school, your children's school, your grandchildren's school, at your church. Maybe don't have potlucks where everybody brings something covered in buttery crackers, whatever it may be. But be the champion. Wherever you are, you can be a champion. And then, again, this is incredibly selfish and self-serving, but I couldn't miss the opportunity. Go to the Health and Wellness Coalition, hwcwichita.org, and please join the coalition. You don't even have to come to a meeting if you don't want to, but get on our newsletter distribution list and our email distribution list, where we're always bringing up topics, educational opportunities, events, things such as this. We promoted it there. So join the Health and Wellness Coalition or any other group that's important to you, even if you can't go to the meeting because you're at work or some other reason, but just stay engaged and keep learning and keep getting new information.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Let's have a round of applause for our wonderful panel. And now I know that I've already gotten through quite a few questions from the crowd here, but are there any other questions that we can? Okay, we'll start our Q&A now. Stand up, please.
I would like to know more about the food backpacks for elementary students in Wichita. How we can get involved for our students.
So how does the school get involved? So schools, just about every elementary and middle school in Wichita is on the program. But if for some reason your school's not, just reach out to us at the food bank. And it's pretty simple. We'll come out. We have very few guidelines. We don't even know the names of the kids. We just ask them to identify children that they feel do not have enough food over the weekend, and then just a little bit of paperwork, and then some monthly reports. They're all done online. It's not more than 5 minutes, so it's a pretty simple process. Excuse me? Yes. In our schools, there's a different coordinator. Some are social workers, some are teachers, some are, for not a better term, the lunchroom lady. So it just depends on who feels called in that school to want to run the program.
Are there any other questions back here? Sorry. Yes, stand up for me, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to tell you, I was the one with the question that she couldn't read very well.
Oh, sorry.
But I did want to elaborate on that just a tiny bit. I noticed they built Southeast, and I have a wonderful daughter-in-law who's a teacher, and even she supported this expansion of Southeast, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, it looks like a prison, and it's very huge. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and I got hoodwinked in paying, our tax dollars of $52 million to support this for the developers who are continuing to be developing out in the suburbs and hollowing out our cities to cause these food deserts. This is what I believe is the biggest issue that causes these food deserts, is because our neighborhoods are becoming poorer and poorer, and we're not mixing our neighborhoods. We don't have middle class mixed with somebody that's maybe has more income, and with people that are at all different income levels. And what this does is it leaves the poorest of the poor in a lot of these neighborhoods. And the Kroger's, which is a national, grocery store chain, is not going to support these poor neighborhoods. If you can feed people high-end cheeses, wonderful steaks, and all these things that make them a lot of money, they are not going to continue to have these places. So as long as we expand out into the middle of nowhere, then we will continue to be fighting an uphill battle, and that's what my opinion is on this.
Would anyone like to address that thought? Okay, we have a question here.
As far as school lunches are concerned, would you recommend longer eating periods for the students?
Longer eating periods do help the kids have time to eat the food, which is always a good thing. That's always a tough question because it's so varied everywhere about their eating periods and times, but longer lunch times allow kids to eat more of their food. Also, how the day is structured is really important. If kids are coming from, let's say, recess to lunch, they're hungry. They're very hungry, and they are more likely to eat everything on their plate or eat all the fruits and vegetables that they're served, as opposed to recess right after lunch. And when that happens, a lot of times kids can leave as soon as they're done eating to go to recess. So when that's the case, they don't eat all their food to go hurry outside and get to play. So the way we structure our schedules throughout the day can be very important. Including talking time, so it's fun can also be important, but a lot of times that's what's cut out too, is the talking time, so kids don't get to have that conversation around food either.
I wanted to ask a question about the water infrastructure. I've noticed that, with the hot weather, there's a lot of pipes breaking and stuff like that. Are some of those federal programs, do they work with infrastructure, or how is our infrastructure in the city of Wichita?
Right, that's one of the things that we've learned through, I think someone mentioned earlier, had a question about the project that we have going on right now to try to bring private dollars and invest in our local utility. And we do know that we've got quite a bit of deferred maintenance and deferred replacement in our water infrastructure, and it's going to be a uphill struggle, but we're also limited by the amount of income that we bring in, the amount of revenue that we bring into the utility. And we bring revenue in through rates, and that goes to pay off debt when we issue bonds to replace our infrastructure. And so that is one of the innovative approaches that we're taking, is trying to get the private investment in the public utility. But as far as federal dollars, we're not utilizing any federal programs, so I don't believe there's any available for us to use to replace our water lines at this time.
I have a question for you, Don. There are several plumes of toxic pollution in the water system. The city is addressing two of them with Gilbert Mosley of the Northeast Corridor. What about that dry cleaning one out in West Wichita?
Yeah, that's managed by the Kansas Department of Health and Environment through their Dry Cleaner Trust Fund. Anytime you use a dry cleaning business, a portion of what you pay goes into a state fund that addresses specifically contamination that is caused by a dry cleaner. The West Wichita plume, the one that was discovered I think a couple of years ago, a year or two ago, is probably the one that you're referring to. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment paid for extending water mains to serve all of those homes, paid for those homes to be connected, and they're also in charge of the cleanup of that plume.
All right. Let's have another big round of applause for our panel. And some great questions tonight. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you so much for coming. Please join us for next month's Engage ICT. It will be at the Scottish Rite Center on September 13th. We will be discussing domestic and foreign policy, so it'll be another really interesting one. Please join us for that. And also, if you get a chance, please take our surveys. at engageict.org. We really value getting to know what the community thinks on different topics and what you know. So thank you again for coming, and please have a wonderful evening.